Hello students, before we start the next part of this chapter, reproduction in plants, I want to tell you about the portion which we have completed yesterday, that is the asexual reproduction in the plants. So hope all you understood the various methods of asexual reproduction in plants. Where the vegetative propagation, artificial vegetative propagation, natural vegetative propagation you have studied, tissue culture you have studied, the various methods are there of the asexual reproduction by the unicellular organisms also. Now today we will study the sexual reproduction in plants. So in today's that lecture we will see this sexual reproduction in plants. So what is sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction is common method of reproduction in flowering plants, and seeds are produced as a result of sexual reproduction which germinate and grow into new plants. So seed is produced after the reproduction. These seeds we grow in the soil and they germinate and develop into the new plants. So sexual reproduction is done in the plant with the help of flowers. So here the flowers are the reproductive organs in angiosperms. As I said you, what are the angiosperms? The flower bearing plants, those who produce the seeds. So these flowers are the reproductive organs in angiosperms. They are the organs of reproduction in seed bearing plants. They are known as the angiosperms. They are known as flower bearing plants also, seed bearing plants also. Now flowers are known as the reproductive organs in the angiosperms, and a flower contains male and female gametes. So these male and female gametes, they are produced by the male and female reproductive parts. So the male part of the flower is known as the androecium and the female part of a flower is known as the gynoecium. Now the function of flowers is to form seeds. So after fusion of gametes, zygote is formed and that develops in the embryo and remaining part develops in the seed. These seeds, they can germinate and develop into the new plants. So let we see the structure of a flower. So here we will see that flowers, they differ in their size, shape and color. Yet most of them, they have the common structure. Yes, size of the flower varies. You have seen in the garden that some of the flowers are very small, some are very large, some are of medium size. The shape is also different, color is also different. So when you go and visit a garden, you can see the different colors in the flowers. Now when we discuss or talk about the structure, then they share the common structure. Most flowers, they have 4 whorls or 4 layers. So what are the 4 layers? We will study through the diagram. So first we will see all these whorls. You can see the outermost whorl, then the second whorl, then this third whorl, and then this is the innermost whorls. They all are named differently. So all these whorls or layers in a these are arranged in a definite order on a fleshy base, and this fleshy base is known as the thalamus. You can see this is the thalamus, or we call it as the receptacle. So all these floral whorls, they arranged in a definite order on the swollen part, a fleshy base, which is known as the thalamus or the receptacle. Now what are the 4 whorls? So we'll discuss here. The here you will see this receptacle has one more structure. Peduncle is there. This peduncle is the structure by which flower is attached with the branch. Now we will see the 4 whorls. What are the 4 whorls? The outermost whorl, which is green in color, and it is known as the calyx. You can see a sepal is the labeling given. Sepal is the unit of calyx. So outermost wall is the calyx, and what are its units? The units are known as sepals. Next to that wall is the corolla. So where is the corolla? This is corolla. Corolla is made up of petals. You can see here 3 petals are seen in this flower. This is the vertical section of flower. So these petals are the units of corolla. So second whorl is known as the corolla, and the third whorl is the androecium. You can see this elongated structure. This elongated structure is known as the stamen. So this stamen is the part of androecium, that is the male reproductive part. And at last the fourth whorl, which is known as the gynoecium. So understood, children? This is the female reproductive part, known as pistil also. So let me revise all these whorls again. The outer two whorls, means this is calyx and the second is corolla. So calyx is made up of sepals, corolla is made up of petals. So calyx and corolla, these are the outer whorls. They do not take part in reproduction. So their role is not in the reproduction, but they help in the process of reproduction. Inner two whorls, they are androecium. Androecium is this one stamen, and the gynoecium. This androecium, which are made up of stamens, and gynoecium, which is made up of carpels. So they both are the inner whorls, and they participate or they take part in the reproduction. Now we will see the androecium is the male part of the flower, made up of stamens. It consists of two parts. This upper part is known as the anther. This is the anther, and this lower part, this is known as the filament. And this anther and filament together, they are termed as stamen. Understood? So this is known as the stamen, and all these stamens together, they are known as the androecium. They are male reproductive part, and what is their role? They produce male gametes. Pollen grains are produced in the anther, and pollen grains are the male gamete. So understood, children? This is the androecium. Now we will see the gynoecium part here. So the gynoecium part is made up of here the carpel or the pistil. Each pistil is made up of 3 parts. The uppermost part, that is stigma, the middle filament like structure, style, and lower swollen base, this is known as the ovary. So this stigma, it receives the male gamete. Style, through it the male gamete goes and reaches to the ovary. Ovary contains ovule in it with the embryo cell, and that ovule has female gamete, that is egg cell. So egg cell is produced in the ovule, and this egg cell fuses with the male gamete during the fertilization. So understood all the 4 parts. The outermost is calyx, second is corolla, third is androecium, and innermost whorl is the gynoecium. Androecium is the male part, gynoecium is the female part. So this is the structure of flower. This structure of flower you draw in your notebook, properly labeled, along with the all functions. Now we'll see the types of flowers. Most flowers have all the 4 whorls, which we have discussed now. All the 4 whorls means outermost calyx or sepals, second petals, third androecium, and fourth gynoecium. So when all the 4 whorls are present in a flower, then it is known as the complete flower. What is called complete flower? Means all the 4 whorls are present, then flowers are known as the complete flowers. Since both androecium and gynoecium present in the flowers, so they are known as the bisexual flowers. So bisexual means both androecium and gynoecium, male and female reproductive parts are present in the flower. They are termed as hermaphrodite also. Another name of bisexual flower is hermaphrodite flowers. So what are these flowers? These are China rose, hibiscus, then rose, petunia. These are the example of the complete flowers. In them the male and female reproductive parts both are present along with the calyx and corolla. So this is first type. Now the next is there incomplete flowers. Incomplete flowers means they lack either a male whorl or a female whorl. Means either a male whorl is absent or a female whorl is absent. So this is incomplete flower. Such flowers are known as unisexual flower also. Unisexual, uni means one, sexual means one reproductive, one type of reproductive structure is present in them, either male or female. So they are known as the unisexual flowers also. So they will be the male only, means they will have only the male reproductive part. If they have only male reproductive part, that is stamens are present, then it is known as the staminate flowers. So flowers, they are unisexual, and if the unisexual flower has only male part, that is stamens are present, then they are known as the staminate flowers or male flowers. Now the next category is there when the flower has only pistil, only gynoecium is present, then it is known as the pistillate flower or known as the female flowers. So understood children, unisexual flowers are of two types, staminate flowers and pistillate flowers. For example, papaya and maize. In papaya I will show you here, this is the male flower and this is the female flower. So both these are the unisexual flowers in papaya. Now maize is also another example, I will show you further. Here one more category of the flower is there, which is known as the neutral flowers. So what are neutral flowers? There are some flowers, they have neither androecium nor gynoecium. So both the reproductive structures are absent in them. They are known as the neutral flowers. Where do you see this neutral flowers? You see the neutral flowers in the sunflower, the ray florets. Because this sunflower is not a flower, it is an inflorescence. It has many flowers. Like in the center, it has the small flowers which are known as the disc floret, and at the periphery it has the the ray florets. So disc florets and ray florets together, they make a complete inflorescence here. So here these ray florets, they are the neutral flowers. Now this is the maize. In the maize flower also you will see the male inflorescence is at the top and the female flower is here, the cob, the corn which you eat, that is the part of the female inflorescence. And this silk like structure which comes out from the cob, this is the stigma. You know, many hair like structure comes out from the cob, these are the silk or known as the stigma, and this is the male inflorescence at the top of the corn plant or the maize plant. So understood? So this is the example of the unisexual flowers, and this is the example of neutral flowers. So understood children, the types of flowers. Now we'll come to the function of flowers. As they produce seed, so we'll see how do they produce the seeds. So for fusion of gametes to occur and seeds to be formed, pollen grains produced in the anther must be transferred to the stigma of the pistil. So students, as I explained you that anther produces male gamete which is known as the pollen grain, and the ovary produces the egg cell which is the female gamete. So pollen grain and this female gamete, they will produce then only the fusion will be there and the zygote will produce and that will form the seed. So here there is a need to transfer the pollen grain to the stigma of the pistil. So the process by which pollen grains from the anther of the flower are transferred to the stigma of the same or another flower is called as the pollination. You can see here in the diagram. This is anther. Now anther produces pollen grain. This pollen grain reaches to the stigma, that is the part of gynoecium. So this process of transfer of pollen grain to the stigma, this is known as the pollination. Now it can occur either on the same flower or onto the next flower. So this pollen grain can be transferred to the stigma of another flower. So understood, children? This is known as the pollination. Now pollination occurs naturally as well as artificially, both. Natural pollination is of two types. How? As I explained you that the pollen grain can reach to the stigma of the same flower, or it can go to the here to the stigma of another flower. So the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anthers to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, if this plant belong to the this flower belong to the same plant, then it is the self pollination. Are you getting it? If another flower is on the same plant, then it is the self pollination. So this, in this case, it is self pollination. But what is cross pollination? In cross pollination, the process of transfer of pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of a flower of another plant of the same species, means this flower is on the another plant. So understood? In this case, it is known as the self pollination. So when this flower is on the same plant, and when the at that time the anther transported here or the pollen transfers here, then it is self pollination. When this flower is on the another plant and this is also on the different plant, and here the pollen grains are transferred from this flower of one plant to the stigma of another flower on the another plant, then it is the cross pollination. So underline this definition in your book given: self pollination and cross pollination. And there are many differences in self pollination and cross pollination. We will see here that self pollination occurs within a flower or between two flowers of the same plant. You can see here the self pollination and the cross pollination. This is cross pollination, this is self pollination. So in self pollination, what happens? So it occurs within a flower or between the two flowers of the same plant. Now in the cross pollination, you see it occurs in the two flowers of the different plants of the same species, means the species of the plant must be same. Now in the self pollination, no external agent is required. Here you can see a pollinator is shown, insect is shown. So an external agent is required, like this insect, birds, animals, wind, to transfer the pollen grains. Now what happens in self pollination? As such, no external agents are required. So the pollen grains, they are produced in the small numbers. So small numbers of pollen grains are sufficient to reach to the stigma. So there's no wastage of pollen grains. But children, you see here in this case where the self pollination occurs, pollen grains are produced in large numbers. So this large number of pollen grain are produced. Why? Because there are chances of wastage of pollen grains on their way. So when they reach to the stigma of the next flower on the another plant, so on its way there are chances of wastage. So that is why to ensure the pollination, many pollen grains are produced. Now here, in case of self-pollination, flowers are usually not attractive. But here in cross-pollination, flowers are attractive with the colored petals. So to attract the insects and pollinators. Pollinators are the organisms which are responsible for the pollination. So understood, children? The differences between the self pollination and cross pollination, all these points I explained you already with the help of diagram. It occurs within a flower or between two flowers of the same plant. It occurs between two flowers of the different plants of same species. No external agent required. Here external agent is required. In self-pollination, a small number of pollen grains are produced. Here large number of pollen grains are produced. No wastage of pollen grains here. Here the wastage of pollen grains. No attractive flower in the self-pollination, and cross-pollination, attractive flowers with the colored petals. So understood, children? Now in the cross-pollination, that wind, water, insects, birds and other animals, they help in the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, and they are therefore known as the agents of pollination. As you saw one term also, pollinators or agents of pollination. And depending on the external agents involved in the cross pollination, there are the different types of cross pollination we will study. So different agents are there of the pollination. So on the basis of this external agents involved, the cross pollination is of different types. So first we will see here the pollination. This cross pollination is by the insects. So pollination by insects, this is known as the entomophily. So pollination by insects is known as the entomophily. You can see here also on this flower salvia, this insect is sitting in, during its movement it transfers the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of another flower. Here also you can see in the marigold also. So it is the most common method of natural pollination. Insects just like the bees, butterflies, they visit flowers to collect nectar. What is nectar? Nectar is sugary secretion from the nectar secreting cells present at the base of flower. So this butterfly and this insect, they visit the flower to collect this nectar. In this process, pollen grains, they get stuck to their body, and when these insects visit another flower, pollen grains get transferred to the stigma of that flower. Understood? So this is the way they transfer the pollen grain. So flowers pollinated by insects, they are large, brightly colored, often scented. They have fragrance also. For example, here salvia, rose, marigold, and most flowers, they produce nectar and are sweet smelling. Smell is also sweet. So in order to suck the nectar, and they are get attracted towards the sweet smell, they visit the flower. For example, night jasmine. Pollen grains and the stigma of most of the flowers are sticky. So pollen grains are also sticky, stigma is also sticky. So pollen grains are sticky, so they attach with the these parts of the insects and can be carried easily to the stigma of another flower. And the stigma is also sticky, so as it receives the pollen grains, it does not allow to fall them. So understood? This is the pollination by insect, known as the entomophily also. Now the next method of pollination by wind. Pollination by wind is known as the anemophily. Anemophily, here the flowers of the plant like rice, here you see this is rice, maize, grasses, they are pollinated by wind. And you see most wind pollinated flowers are very small. You see here, they are very small. Most wind pollinated flowers are small, have dry and light pollen grains. So, dry and light pollen grains which can be easily carried by wind. Pollen grains are produced in large quantities. Why? Because at least some they have chance to reach the stigma. So, there are chances of wastage. So, that is why they are produced in the large quantity. So, some of the pollen grains they can reach to the stigma. The style projects out. Here you can see in the maize, already I showed you in the previous diagram also. This stigma is projected out, has large the feathery stigma like in the maize, so that the pollen flying in the wind can easily receive. So, this is the pollination by wind in the maize, grasses and rice. And there are differences between the insect pollinated and wind pollinated flowers. So, that you can do as I explained you both the methods given in your book on page number 24, table 2.2. So, you see these differences from this table. Now, next we will do the pollination by water. Pollination by water is called hydrophily. Hydrophily as it occurs in water. So, it occurs in aquatic plants like Hydrilla and Vallisneria. Here this is the plant shown here, Vallisneria. And here the flowers pollinated by water, they are very light. You can see here the flowers are shown. Here the male inflorescence and this is the female flower is there. So, flowers pollinated by the water, they are light. Why they are light? So that they can easily float on the surface. And they do not produce the nectar because there is no need of nectar. Pollens are carried with the water current. Pollen grains are produced in the large quantities. You know, the same reason is there as we have studied. So, pollen grains are produced in the large quantities. So, there are chances of the wastage, and also large quantity of pollen grains are there. So, some of them they can reach to the stigma. Male and female flowers are usually produced on separate plant. Yes, you can see here the two plants are there. This first Vallisneria plant has female flower and this plant has the male flowers. So, you can understand here usually it happens the male and female flowers are produced on the separate plant. And in Vallisneria the male flower is submerged in water. You can see male flower is in the under the water, and on maturity it gets detached and floats on the water. So, on maturity the flowers they get detached and floats on the water. So, the pollen grains from these male flowers they reach to the female flower, and when the female flower comes in the contact these male flowers they come in the contact with female flowers. You can see the female flowers at the top of the water surface here. Some that flowers they are out of the water, and here these male flowers are submerged in the water and they are at the surface of the water. So, when the male flowers they come in contact with the female flower, the pollen grains get deposited onto the stigma and the pollination occurs. So, understood children? How does hydrophily take place? And examples are there, Hydrilla and Vallisneria. Now, next we will see the pollination by animals. Yes, some animals like birds, squirrels, pets also acts as the agents of pollination when they suck nectar from flowers. So, these animals also visit the flowers to suck the nectar. And in such cases, flowers are usually large, bright colored and growing on the trees. You can see this is silk cotton tree. You might have seen this plant in the gardens. So, this is beautiful plant silk cotton tree, and you can see many flowers are there on this tree. So, they are the flowers which are pollinated by the animals. So, understood children? The different types of cross pollination. First, pollination by insect. second pollination by wind, third pollination by water, and fourth pollination by animals. And all these are the ways of pollination taking place naturally, takes place in nature. So they are the natural pollination. Now we'll see the artificial pollination. Natural pollination which occurs in nature, but the artificial pollination is performed to produce a new variety of a plant with certain required characteristics. So this is done by the gardeners, by the human being, in order to get the new variety of the plant with desired characteristics. In this process, two different varieties of a crop plant with the desired characters are selected, and here for example one variety may be the high yielding variety, means produces higher grain producing variety, and other variety may be disease resistant, means free from diseases, or here this variety is capable to fight against the diseases. So disease resistant variety. After selection of these varieties, cross breeding is done by artificial pollination, that is pollination by man. So done by artificial pollination to get a variety of plant which has both the desired characteristics from the parent variety, and this is known as the hybridization. And the variety which is produced, which is known as the hybrid. So what is the hybridization? The process of developing plants and animals having some desired qualities like high yield, disease resistance, and tolerance to climate. Climate means the whatever changes taking place in climate, temperature, water, many more climatic factors are there. So they are tolerant to the climatic factors also. So understood the process of hybridization here. So here we will see many hybrid high yielding varieties of wheat, rice and maize have been produced by the process of hybridization. And here the contribution of scientists, I want to tell you here that Gregor Mendel was the scientist, an Austrian monk who bred thousands of pea plants by artificial pollination in the botanical garden of his monastery, and he used a pen brush to transfer the pollen grains from one plant to another. And based on these experiments, he established the principles of inheritance and laid the foundations of genetics. So, he is known as the father of genetics also, Gregor Mendel. And in the genetics there we study the genes, heredity and variation. So this is all about the contribution of scientists. Now we will see the method of hybridization. This method of hybridization is given in your book on page number 25. So open this and see this method there also. Figure 2.18. Here the steps of hybridization I showed you in the summarized way. So for hybridization, first what is done? Here selection of the parent plant with the different qualities. As I said you that one variety suppose may be the high yielding variety and other variety may be the disease resistant variety. So we are selecting the parent plant with the different qualities. Now in this artificial pollination, during hybridization, the removal of stamens from the female flower. So here removal of the stamens of a bisexual flowers, and then before they the anthers mature. So before the anthers mature, they are removed. Now this flower with gynoecium intact is covered with a paper or muslin bag to prevent natural pollination. So the female part is left on the flower because stamens are removed here, and this female flower now it is covered with the paper or a muslin bag, so natural pollination cannot take place. Now we will do another thing here. When the stigma of this flower matures, so the pollen grains of another selected plant are taken. Okay, so the collection of pollen grains from the male flower, and as this female flower or the flower with the female part matures, here on the stigma of this flower, the pollen grains, they are further taken and deposited onto the stigma of the mature flower. So, pollinating the female flower. Pollinating means how? The pollen grains selected from other that male flower or the plant, and then after they are deposited onto the stigma of the female flower. Now, after this we'll cover the mother plant again with the polythene bag, and then what happens, the seeds which are produced after this artificial pollination give rise to a new hybrid variety, and this new hybrid variety which will be produced there, that is generally different, better than the parent plant, and they are high yielding or better quality and disease resistant. So, understood children? These are the steps of hybridization. So, I will summarize here. First, selection of the variety, then removal of the stamens from the bisexual flower and then cover it with the paper or a muslin bag, then collection of the pollen grains from another selected plant, then next step, deposit this pollen grain onto the stigma which we have covered previously. After that pollination, fusion of the gametes will be there, and then the zygote will produce, and then the seeds will be produced, and these seeds will be grown to get the better variety. Understood children? So, these all are the steps in the hybridization. Now, next we will see the process of fertilization. How does fertilization take place is some of the steps just now I explained you. So, children, you know male and female reproductive part of the flower very well. Male part here produces male gamete, that is the pollen grain. So, these are the pollen grains. You can see the pollen grain structure has the nucleus, here generative nucleus and tube nucleus. This pollen grain when deposited onto the stigma, it develops a tube. This is the pollen tube. So, when the pollen grain reaches the stigma, it begins to grow a pollen tube that travels down through the style. You can see here, travels down through the style to reach inside the ovary, and the nucleus of the pollen tube divides to form two male gamete. You can see here generative nucleus and the tube nucleus. This nucleus again, generative nucleus, divides and form two sperm nuclei. So, the nucleus of the pollen tube divides to form two male gametes. Now, a male gamete reaches to the through the pollen tube, and where does it go? It goes to the ovary and fuses with the egg cell in the ovule which is present in the ovary. This process of fusion of male gamete and female gamete is called fertilization. So, underline this definition also in your book. The process of fusion of male gamete with the female gamete is called as fertilization, and the single cell which is produced after fertilization is called the zygote. So, what are the different steps here in the process of fertilization? I will show you here again. So, the pollen grain reaches to the stigma, then forms pollen tube. In the pollen tube, what is present? Male gametes. Male gametes, they reach to the ovule. In the ovule, egg cell is there. So, they fuse, means male gamete fuses with the egg cell. Fusion of male gamete and female gamete, that is fertilization, and after fertilization what is produced? Zygote, and this zygote further develops into the embryo. So this zygote further develops into the embryo. Now one more thing here. After fertilization, what happens? After fertilization, all these sepals, petals and stamens, they fall off, and the stigma and style, they also wither away. Now ovary, it contains ovules, and ovule has the fertilized egg that we call it as a zygote. This zygote continues to grow. Now this zygote divides and continues to grow and grow into embryo. You can see inside it an embryo is growing, and then it has two cotyledons and an embryonic axis in it, that I will show you in the seed, because after this the seed formation is there. And where is the seed? The seed is present inside the fruit. So what is a seed? A fertilized and mature ovule which can grow into a new plant under favorable conditions. So fertilized and developed ovule changes into the seed. So ovule changes into the seed. Then what happens to the ovary? Ovary changes into the fruit. You can see here inside the fruit the seed is there. This is seed here, and this is fruit. So ovary develops into the fruit and ovule develops into the seed. This seed when grow, germinate, then it produces the plant again. So let me see this fruit formation. Ovule becomes the seed and ovary becomes the fruit. You can see here, this is ovary. Ovary changes into the fruit part and ovule changes into the seed part. This is the diagram of apple. Like some fruits like apple and pear, they are known as the false fruit also, because their ovary does not form their main fleshy part. This fleshy part of the apple is not formed by the ovary, so it is a false fruit. Ovary, you can see here, it is in the here in the dry form. Here only the membranous form is there of the ovary, and inside it the seeds are present. Okay, so understood the fruit formation. Now a fruit is a ripened ovary that contains one or more seed. Like in apple I showed you, here this inner part is the here this is ovary, and inside the ovary these are the seeds. So a fruit is a ripened ovary, contains one or more seed. You can see here many seeds, here two seeds are there, and here in the tomato you see many seeds are there. So a fruit can be containing one or more seed. A fruit can be fleshy. You can see tomato, this is the fleshy one. The wall of the ovary can be fleshy, as in papaya or tomato. It may be dry also, depending upon the wall of the ovary. So like the dry seed which we can see here in the pea, why the fleshy fruit may be the papaya, tomato, cucumber. Understood, children? So there are the different types of fruits. False fruit like apple, which in which the fruit does not develop from the ovary. Fleshy fruits are there where the wall of the ovary is the fleshy one, and the dry where the wall of the ovary is dry. Now what is the role of the fruit? The fruit protects the seed from insects, diseases and extreme climatic condition, because these seeds are covered by the fruit part. Understood? So main function is protection. Now a typical seed, just like gram or bean, here you can see this is the bean seed. So a typical seed of gram and bean consists of seed coat. Seed coat, you can see here, this is seed coat. So what is seed coat? Seed coat is the outer covering, and an embryo plant. You can see a tiny plant inside it. This is a embryo, and it consists of two fleshy cotyledons, 1 and 2. They are the cotyledons, and a short curved structure here. This short curved structure is known as the embryonal axis, and cotyledons are attached. These are the cotyledons attached with the embryonal axis, and the axis consists of two parts. The lower part is known as the radicle. This is lower part, radicle, and radicle develops into the root system. So at the time of germination, this radical parts develops into the root system. Upper part you see consists of a small leafy structure. This is known as the plumule, and the plumule develops into the shoot system. So understood children here, that here the plumule upper part and here the lower part is the radicle. Radicle develops into the root system and plumule develops into the shoot system. So here the process here of the germination also shown in the diagram. You see, when we cover the soil seed with the soil and provide proper water and moisture, then here this sleeping or dormant embryo which is present in the seed, it becomes active and grows into the new plant. You can see the embryo plant which is present in this cotyledons, it comes out, and a new plant, you will see a tiny plant comes out, and further it develops into a bigger one. So the process by which a sleeping or dormant embryo, it becomes active and grows into the new plant, this process is known as the germination. Understood children, the process of germination? Here what is required for the germination? Water, a suitable temperature, oxygen, all these are required for the germination. So in this way this part is completed. And one more activity for you, as I told you previously in the previous class, that grow the potato tuber and the here the onions also. So one more activity you can do to study the structure of seed also, by soaking the few kidney beans, that is rajma seeds, overnight. And these seeds, they have a smooth seed coat which can be easily removed on soaking, and remove the seed coat and note your observation regarding the structure. So all these structures which I explained you can see it in the rajma seed also. By soaking it overnight, then remove this seed coat and open the cotyledons, you will see all this structure very clearly. So this is the activity in the germination of seeds. So students, read all these topics from the book also, and all these diagrams, like the diagrams showing the process of fertilization, parts of seed, and here is structure of flower, that all you draw in your notebook, practice them. Some differences are there, and solve the